In southern Thailand, human trafficking is on the rise while authorities struggle to control criminal gangs that capture illegal immigrants and transport them to other countries.
Thousands of Muslim Rohingya fleeing Burma, also known as Myanmar, have ended up under the brutal control of these gangs. Steve Sandford reported on the abuse that many of these victims face, and he talked with me about his coverage and the plight of the Rohingya in Burma and beyond.
In southern Thailand, a chain of remote islands conceals a growing problem for Thai authorities. Thousands of Muslim Rohingya escaping persecution in Burma often begin the journey to Malaysia voluntarily, but end up under the brutal control of criminal gangs in Thailand.
Steve, they're often called stateless and unwanted. Who are the Rohingya?
Well, the Rohingya are a ethnic Muslim group based primarily in Western Burma, in Bangladesh and India. Currently, there are about 700,000 of them in Rakhine State in Western Burma, but most of them are classified as stateless due to the Burmese military implementing a law in 1982, which basically eliminated them from the national standings.
So your story, Steve, focuses on the Rohingyas' escape out of Burma and their attempt to get to Malaysia, but somehow they end up in Thailand. How does that happen?
Well, quite often when they're leaving Burma, escaping the ongoing violence that's occurring over there right now, and the conflict, quite often they will pay to get a seat on a boat. They pay the smugglers in Burma a certain set fee, and then they set off, usually with a destination such as Malaysia. En route, they will stop in Thailand, and quite often they will be transferred from one group to another. Sometimes there have been indicators that certain Thai authorities are involved with the criminal gangs, and they end up in a case that might have started out as a smuggling case, and it transforms into more of a human trafficking case. One asylum seeker who took police to a former trafficking camp said there was little food and water, and they were beaten often if they couldn't pay more money for their release.
They forced me to call my brother. I told him that he had to pay the brokers for my freedom. But my brother had no money, so the brothers kicked and punched me until my family could raise enough funds.
You talk about the Thai authorities being involved potentially in the smuggling operations, but they're also involved in these criminal gangs?
These trafficking routes between Burma and Malaysia have been well established over the last few decades. The Thai authorities quite often are aware of these trafficking gangs. Money is to be made, whether it's in looking the other way or helping in getting them through Thailand to Malaysia. There are also a lot of Thais that are sympathetic to the Rohingya. They understand the situation they're facing right now in Burma. At the same time, there is a huge amount of refugees from other countries that are coming through Thailand. So it's a bit of a difficult situation on both sides.
What's being done about this then at the government level in Thailand? Because you're talking about authorities being complicit in these operations. So are there efforts in place to stop these gangs?
I think there are elements of the Thai police force that are actively trying to apprehend these criminal gangs, but there are also members within the different authorities that are complicit, and therefore it makes it a lot more difficult for the authorities that want to stop these activities from doing so.
So Steve, what's the future then for the Rohingya? It seems like the root of this problem really is in Burma. So how are they going to be treated in the future? Do we see any change?
Well, I think you're exactly right there. Basically, the situation in Burma has got dramatically worse in recent months. Groups that have been associated with the military, Buddhist nationalists, have been linked to the military. They have basically cut off humanitarian aid to the camps that are now holding about 140,000 displaced Rohingya in Rakhine State. They're lacking medical aid. There are daily preventable deaths that are occurring, according to recent reports. And so I think the situation in Rakhine State, I mean, a lot of people are saying it is the same conditions as a genocide. It's a slow-burning genocide, a lot of people are saying. Western businesses, Western governments need to be aware of what the situation, how drastic it is getting over there. Yeah, there just doesn't seem to be a lot of attention on it right now.
And Steve says in addition to humanitarian workers not getting into Burma's Rakhine State, media also do not have free access, and there are reports of cholera and other preventable diseases not being treated there.
And when you consider that the monsoon season is coming as well, things just get worse and these people just don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah,
So
really
sad
tough spot.
stories, yeah.